Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be doing a beginner's guide on how to instantly improve in racing games, whether that's Project Cars, Assetto Corsa, Gran Turismo 7, Forza Horizon 5 or the new Forza Motorsport game. I would like to say this is aimed more at beginners and not people who already have quite a lot of experience at racing games. But yeah, let's get into the video. Okay, so before we do get into it, I'm just going to be giving you a quick overview of what you can expect in this video. This may be a long video, so I'm going to give you the timestamps for each individual section. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is choosing the right car for the track. Second tip is going to be to start slow. Third tip is going to be a basic idea of the difference between engine position and the effect this can have on a car's handling. Fourth tip is going to be the tuning shot. The fifth tip is going to be about frequently occurring tracks. The sixth tip is going to be changing to manual transmission, and the final tip is going to be just to practice. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is choosing the right car for the right track. Now, it is seen in these racing games there are a lot of different tracks and lots of different cars to choose from. So how do we get the best lap times without having to memorise what cars are the fastest around each individual track? Well, I cannot guarantee that you'll be setting world records, but I can guarantee that you'll be able to significantly reduce your lap times. So the way we're going to be doing this is identifying what makes a car fast around a specific track, and then finding a car which matches these criteria. So let's pick two examples, which are Tsukuba and Le Mans. These are two opposite tracks. Tsukuba is a small, compact Japanese circuit, whereas Le Mans, I hope I'm saying that right, is a long, straight track. As you'll be able to see, these tracks are best driven with the right car. So let's take a closer look at Tsukuba. As we can see, it has a lot of turns and a lot of short length straights, so because of this we need a car with good acceleration. High top speed is irrelevant, as by the time you get up to top speed the track would have ended and you'll be on the barrier. Also, because of the tight turns, you want to eliminate understeer as much as possible to ensure we carry speed through the corners. So with all of this we're going to need a car that is lightweight, preferably a car that doesn't have the engine near the front, as this will cause excess understeer. And as you can imagine, the track is best suited to track day cars like this back mono you can see on the screen. Despite only having 300 horsepower, it's a lot faster than cars with over 700 horsepower around this track. Okay, now let's look at Le Mans. As I mentioned earlier, this track has a lot of long straights, so because of this you want a car that can travel down the straights as quickly as possible. This means a high top speed and low weight and good acceleration will help achieve this as well. You're going to have a car with also good brakes to help slow down the car travelling at 200 miles an hour. So I think the Bugatti Chiron is a perfect car for this track. While I'm using these two cars as examples, the same applies to every car and track in the game. Now, some cars do have more uses than others, but they are in their own niches. One thing I would like to is that for rally, no matter the size or the layout of the track, you do want a car that is equipped with dirt tyres and four-wheel drive. This way you can maximise traction. Okay, so next thing we're talking about is starting slow. So one thing you need to bear in mind if you're new to racing games is that you can need to start slow when choosing your first car. The faster the cars, the more difficult they are to drive. So it makes sense if you start with a slow car to get used to racing it and then getting faster. It's going to get you used to the feel of driving a car. Now, there are three main cars in most racing games that are perfect for beginners due to their good handling, low price and being very forgiving in terms of their handling. So the first car is a classic, the Mazda MX-5. It doesn't really matter what variant you choose or what year, but in my opinion this is the best car for beginners. Now, this is in literally every single racing game, so it should be quite easy to find. Next car is the Toyota GT86. The car's a bit more power than the MX-5, but it's still a forgiving car. The final car is the Honda Civic. Once again, there are lots of variants, and with it being front-wheel drive, you can get a basic idea of how different cars handle. If I was starting again, I would choose the MX-5, then I'd use the GT86 when I got a little more confident. Eventually you can work your way up, getting more and more powerful each time to the point where you're able to drive the fastest cars in the game, as you can see on the screen right now as we're getting progressively faster. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the basic idea of differences between engine position and the effect that it can have on a car's handling. Now, most cars produce a front engine front wheel drive because it's cheaper to make, Due to everything being at the front, they usually have understeer. However, because of the layout, power is usually limited and there are a few front-wheel drive cars with over 300 horsepower. Makes them very suitable for beginners. Next we'll talk about front-engine rear-wheel drive cars. Now, due to the drive shaft, the car has a lot better weight distribution, meaning that the understeer is not as bad. These cars handle well and are good for people who are trying to get better at racing games while driving a more powerful car. Some examples on screen of this are the Dodge Viper and the Ford Mustang. Next, when we talk about mid-engine cars. Now, these are cars where the engine is in the middle towards the back of the car. This allows for much better weight distribution, which usually eliminates understeer. However, some of these cars can suffer from bad oversteer instead. These cars are track cars like the back model I showed you earlier. Then we have rear-engine cars. Now, it's worth mentioning there are not many rear-engine cars, the Porsche 911 being the main one. The reason why this is because the engine is at the back of the car and this makes it very unstable, so it oversteers a lot. It's taken Porsche nearly over 60 years to solve this problem. The final thing I want to talk about is the all-wheel drive cars. Now, this is when all the wheels will receive power. This can result in very good acceleration, but they make up for it with it being very, very heavy and understeering, like the Lamborghini you can see on the screen right now. Now, no matter what game you are playing, you will experience these differences in cars, and it is worth getting used to them. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about is the tuning shop. Now, this applies to all racing games, but Forza and Gran Turismo specifically. And there are many things you can do to tune your car, so I'm not going to be going over each individual upgrade, but I can do a video on that if you guys would like. So the main upgrades are suspension, clutch, weight reduction, brakes, aspiration changes, and obviously power upgrades. Now, playing racing games for over 10 years, I've learned there is an order to tuning your car. You should always start with the engine change first, then the tyres, then the brakes, then suspension, and then power. So starting with the tyres, they all have different purposes. Comfort is usually for old cars, sport is obviously for sport cars, racing is for racing cars, intermediate and wet is for rain, and dirt is for rally. We can go a bit deeper than that. We need to look at the differences between soft, medium and hard. If you're a Formula 1 fan, you'll probably know this already, but for the beginners out there, there are differences between the grip levels and how long they last. Softer tyres have a lot more grip, but the trade-off is that they do not last as long, meaning that you'll have to go to the pits more to replace tyres. Hard tyres last a lot longer, but they don't have as much grip. Now it gets interesting when you have to guess what tyres to use. Now, one thing I must tell you that in Gran Turismo 7 specifically, using rain tyres on dry ground will increase their tyre wear, so they will go out very quickly. Next, we talk about weight reduction, which I believe is the best performance upgrade to your car that you can do in any racing game. So rather than increase the force to push the car, why don't you decrease the amount the engine has to push, right? Reducing the weight makes your car accelerate faster, increases its top speed, improves its handling, reduces its understeer, everything. Now, weight reduction is more effective at the lower end of cars, as then power starts becoming more important. If we look at this video by Blake's Tuning, we can see that weight reduction can significantly reduce the 0 to 60 time of a car. However, if we look at this video from Pole Racing, we can say that right, it compares the effect of weight reduction versus full power upgrades for both slow cars and hypercars. So let's have a closer look at this. If we look at the Lamborghini Huracan, we can see that full power has more of an impact than full weight reduction. I am speeding up the video here. The results are similar if we look at the Zenvo. However, if we slow it right down and have a look at this VW pickup truck thing, weight reduction is more beneficial than power. Okay, so next we need to talk about suspension, and more specifically the ride height. So ideally for racing, you want the car to be as low to the ground as possible, while the tyres can still steer to full range. This is going to help you to improve that centre of gravity. There's some other things like frequency, camber and toe angle, but these are set up by default, so I wouldn't really worry about them for now. You can usually buy sport suspension from the shop without having to do any of it yourself. This makes it a lot easier. Talk about the clutch. So installing a racing clutch will significantly reduce the upshift and downshift time of your car. While it may only save a little bit of time on each shift, over the course of the race it does all add up. Have a look at this comparison between a default clutch and a racing clutch in Gran Turismo 7. So the final thing about the tuning shop we're going to be talking about is aspiration changes. Most people think if they put a turbo on their car, it automatically becomes faster. So while this is true, it is important to know how different turbos work. So high RPM turbos usually give more power at the top end. It's because you normally receive less power from your engine as you rev higher. So the high RPM turbo does the opposite effect to ensure that you have a constant power throughout the rev range. So low RPM turbos work the opposite way. So going back to the first tip, it's important to pick a turbo based off how you want the car to perform. For example, a high RPM turbo for high top speed tracks. One thing, if your car does have turbo lag, a delay in the turbo spinning up, make sure you purchase the anti-lag from the tuning shop. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is frequently occurring tracks. This is for beginners wanting to improve their lap times. So after playing Gran Turismo games, Forza Motorsport games, Assetto Corsa and Project Cars, I realised that they all feature much of the same tracks. Now these tracks are also in Formula 1, so some of you may know. There are quite a lot of these tracks, but some of the ones that always appear no matter what game it is Spa, Nürburgring, Red Bull Ring, Watkins Glen and Monza. And making sure you know these tracks can help you improve your lap times across all games, therefore making you a much faster driver throughout. Next we're going to talk about one tip which has made me improve a lot. This was switching to a manual transmission. I do think automatic, where it changes gear for you, is a lot better for beginners as it allows you to focus on improving your driving rather than worrying about what gear you're in. But once you do get used to driving, I do think manual is better. Now the reason why it's important is because it allows you to have more control over your gear changes. You can deliberately stay in one gear or completely rev it out rather than it changing it for you. Now I was over a second faster around Fiji when I switched, so I would definitely recommend you do the same. Now the final tip I'm going to be telling you is just to practice. Ultimately there is no real get quick method of any racing game. You just have to learn to trust the car more, and with more time on the track your racing lines will improve and you'll become a faster driver. You can have a car that's perfect for the track with the right tuning, but if you don't know how to drive it, it's no use. Thank you for watching, I hope you have enjoyed, like and subscribe.